Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a discussion about patch 6.3 for Total War Warhammer 3, which Creative Assembly has detailed in their blog what they're going to do. We're going to get a Tomb King rework, Lizardmen rework, though these are not going to be full reworks on the scale of, say, the Empire or Dwarves or Khorne, but they are still going to substantially change the experience. I'm sure Creative Assembly would prefer I use the term update as opposed to just rework. And I do want to mention this. With respect to racial updates, I think Creative Assembly should be willing to do far more of these. Not necessarily complete overhauls, but just changing a couple of things, structures, heroes, traits, etc. Because they can have a significant experience in a campaign. And also it would be nice to have stuff coming out as opposed to waiting 6, 7, 8, 9 months for content to be coming out, or 10 months, really. I imagine that's how long we're going to have to wait total for Tides of Torment from Omens of Destruction. Though, to be fair, we've got a Kislev rework, we've gotten a Siege beta, so it's not like CA has done nothing in the interim. They've done quite a bit. So anyway, they are going to publish the full patch notes on Friday, and they're going to release the update next week. And they're also going to show it at Rally Point. Now, from Liam Newman, Senior Live QA Technician on Warhammer 3. And he mentions these updates are not full reworks, but they come directly from the ongoing feedback we've received from you. This is one of the things I wish to point out. Creative Assembly does follow forums, does follow Discord, does follow Reddit, does watch content creator videos to get the community's perspective on various things. So if you have a particular issue or you find something that's broken, talk about and mention it. They will see that, especially if it's gaining any kind of traction on Reddit and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, so with the Tomb Kings, one of his favorite races, but having played them a while ago in Warhammer 3, a little bit of their sparkle had gone. I would say it's more than a little bit, but that's just me. I also think the Tomb Kings are in the situation their early game is annoying, but their late game, they're just steamrolling everything. Now, to be fair, the end game situation is a problem in a lot of cases, but hopefully the updates, the changes they're making will hopefully improve that dynamic in their campaigns. So, areas they're focusing on: pace, long distances between the books and Nagash locations, a far slower early mid-game than other races. Hardly something worthy of the majesty Tomb Kings deserve. Canopic jars can feel like they tail off mid-campaign. Yes, they are annoying. Technology trees and landmarks. And also confederations, where we begin. So when playing the Tomb Kings, you can now confederate other Tomb King factions, the major ones at least. So if you're playing Archon, if you defeat Khalida or Katep through military force, you can confederate them. You can also confederate through the Mortuary cult, though not with Archon. Now, I do wonder how this is going to work. Is it going to be subjugation similar to Warriors of Chaos, where you reduce a faction to their last element? Or is it going to be like the Greenskins or Ogres? Based on the wording here, I would imagine it's more like the Greenskins, Ogres, or Norska. But it remains to be seen. So anyway, Archon can get Khalida and Katep through Baal, and none from Mortuary Cult. Okay, so Archon, really strong Legendary Lord, really powerful campaign, won't have the same kind of flexibility. If you're playing Khalida, you can get Katep for either Baal or for the Mortuary Cult. Katep can get Khalida in a similar vein. Cetra can get Katep and Khalida through Baal, and Khalida through the Mortuary Cult. Now, here's my perspective on the subject of Cetra and Katep specifically. I think if you're playing Cetra, you should be able to confederate Katep through the Mortuary Cult. That's my perspective. And if you're playing Katep, you should be able to confederate in Cetra's faction. So Cetra should always be the faction leader in that situation, but you would have the faction effect. It's kind of similar how Vlad and Isabella work. If you play Isabella, then Vlad is still the faction leader in that situation. Anyway, we believe this respects the lore around Tomb Kings. And the reason I mentioned Katep, though, it's actually a lore reason. So, yeah, fair enough. Like, Arkhan would not allow himself to be confederated, whatever. But with regards to Cetra, I think, and Katep is very loyal to Cetra. He's the one who brought him back. Just worth pointing out. Anyway, so you can confederate them. This only applies to major factions, not so I'm guessing it's not going to work with minor factions. Not that there's many minor Tomb King factions, but there is one in particular to the west of Cetra that would be nice, because like Tomb Kings are really strong from a diplomacy standpoint, but you have very strong incentives to actually confederate them, because you require that territory for your victory conditions. So just a perspective on that. Again, doesn't really matter. Those factions do tend to get wiped out, but would be nice to have that kind of confederation from my perspective. Canopic jars, which right now are very, very limited, but now they're gained from post-battle kills, similar to that of meats, slaves, and you can use them in different ways. So you're going to get more, probably a lot more. We'll see the actual values once we get access to the patch. But you can now spend them on the Hekaran decrees for a quick cash injection, some research rate, or garrison sally. Interesting on that. I'm curious to see how these decrees will work, though. Just reading this, I'm kind of reminded of Frot's Lab, those things you can buy over there, those kind of things. But we'll find out how it does end up working. And they've added new banners to the Mortuary cult. Would be interesting to get, better units for the Mortuary cult, but that's just a perspective. Anyway, Mortuary cult could use an update on that subject. Regardless, we've given all characters at least one skill. Tomb Princes now have another path they can choose. Dynasty or Legendary Lords also have a skill Never Say Die, which removes the wounds attribute, so that's probably going to make them far stronger. Something different for each character type. And then technology changes. So pretty substantial. So they've decreased the research penalty for Dynasty technologies, as well as adding some unique effects alongside additional technologies that increase unit capacity. The 6 Dynasty techs, Wisdom of X Dynasty, have lower penalties to a research rate, and each now has an additional effect. Each dynasty has a small increase for unit capacities, typically +2 for non-large units, 1 for relevant large unit. Each hero capacity increase also increases the recruit rank of that hero type. Now, with respect to this, I think Tomb Kings are really freaking ridiculous with respect to their late game potential, because they get free armies as long as you have unit capacity. All your lords are immortal from the moment you recruit them. So you don't really care if you lose them. You don't care if you lose the army. Sure, you lose experience, but you don't really care. So you're steamrolling. The only thing you can lose are heroes, but, you can get immortal line heroes as well. I do think that right now just the Tomb Kings are really bad early on, which is the relevant portion of the campaign, and ridiculously strong later on. So just a bit worried about the end game, but that's an issue in general. So the dynasties are now going to cost canopic jars, but they are going to take 10 turns. So they've reduced the research time by quite a bit. So I'm guessing Tomb Kings will still start with just one army, I suppose. It will depend on how things will play out. I do think the limitation on one army does hurt their early game by quite a bit, because 15 turns is a fair amount of time in a campaign. 10 turns is better, but really does depend on how many canopic jars we start with. But it is kind of one of those issues in regards to how long it takes. But really need to get my hands on it, see how it plays. But it's annoying having that limitation. It really hurts someone like Cetra in particular, because the starting position he has is pretty brutal in a lot of different ways. But here we can see all the dynasties do cost do cost canopic jars, take 10 turns, so I'm guessing you might even start with 250 canopic jars. But yeah, some changes for research. Books of Nagash, this is something, so updates to the research tree, then updates to the Books of Nagash. So they've changed the location of the book. So he uses the example of Khalida's books. You can see that they're far closer. You do still have that one in Drakenhof, which is honestly having to go into the Empire for a book. It can be annoying from my view, and also one in Lustria, and great. But what they don't mention here, so the books themselves overall closer, easier to get a hold of them. But here's two other things. They update the effects, yes, but two things that are not mentioning here. One, being able to gain the books for diplomacy, because if you look at Forex artifacts, he can gain them from diplomacy. If you're looking at Cast Dwarves in their campaign in Realms of Chaos, they can also get those artifacts, so I think it should work in a similar vein to books. And also, of course, the books have an impact, a significant impact on Volkmark's campaign and Manfred's campaign. So that is a big factor in those campaigns and how that will work. But the effects are also being updated. So each book provides an improvement to Dune Restoration, and they've in general, they've gotten just some changes overall with the books. Your 5th book still gives you army capacity Tomb Guard. Now, the problem is the randomization of books, the diplomacy situation of books, and also I want to mention this about restoration. I'm not really a fan of restoration as a mechanic, because the way you play battles, if you're looking at demons, if you're looking at undead, is not a great dynamic to have a situation where you lose your units in a battle and then you have a chance to restore them. The fact that they are increasing the chance, okay, well and good, and given the way the system currently works, but the system itself is not something I'm personally fond of. And then pyramid effects, sometimes they're not worth getting into and constructing. Yeah, the pyramids are one of those annoying things, because victory conditions for Tomb Kings, and this is my issue with Katep's campaign, because like he shouldn't really fight Cetra to win his campaign. But if you're looking at the pyramids, you need them to win your campaign, and so you end up in a limited diplomatic situation in terms of being able to win the campaign, achieve your long campaign victory condition, because you do need to construct the landmarks over there. They are changing the pyramid effects. They're buffing them. They're making them better. And yeah, quite a few of them more just kind of whatever effect. So Cetra can get skeletal warriors and spearmen with expendable. You also can get physical resistance when fighting vampire counts. City Bronze can give you Sniper Ushapti with great bows. Ushapti are ridiculously good as unit with great bows. Like 2 of them take down Scarbrand. The regiment around takes down Scarbrand on its own, so it's like, you really want to make those things more powerful? Like, this is kind of the issue with Tomb Kings. Like, again, the more you play them in a campaign, the more freaking ridiculous they get. Then we have Lizardmen. So again, this is not a full rework, update, vast improvements across the board in many ways, but again, not necessarily full rework. So Geomantic Web in particular is something I believe they mentioned in a video that they're not going to do. Anyway, so areas we focused on tweaking: tech tree, economy, big dinosaurs, skill trees needed sprucing up. So tech tree has been significantly overhauled. The Lizardmen have the worst tech tree in the game at the moment. So if we look at this compared to what we have in the live version, this is much better. I'm not going to go over every detail, but yeah, it's kind of reminding me of the Empire skill tree. So, but regardless, we do have far more useful things. So we have a civilian tree or campaign focus tree, and military tree, and also an update to Nakai's unique tech tree, which, by the way, Nakai's tech tree is the only good tech tree that the Lizardmen have. It's not perfect, but substantially better. Like the only worthwhile one in the entire Lizardmen race. There are some things, of course, I would like them to see addressed, like Tenuen's campaign, how that global war between Lizardmen and Skaven breaks the game, Mazdamundi's campaign mechanics, all that, but again, not full rework. But if they do further update the Lizardmen, that's what I would like to see. Then economic updates. We saw your feedback and also felt that it only really worked when you reached scale, which wasn't that fun as it could constrain you pretty hard in the early game. To address this, we've tweaked resource building so that they now also provide a low amount of treasury. Well, the problem with the Lizardmen economy is not necessarily the money itself. Sure, extra money will help. But the problem is movement. So a lot of limitations in the jungle in terms of movement, post-battle options not being that great, post-battle loot not being that great for Lizardmen, and you having to spend a lot more turns. Just in general, you can change a lot of things about the Lizardmen and to make them better, but the fundamental issue still remains. The jungle sucks. Lustria is badly designed, in particular as a campaign area. I'm just talking generally, like the terrain, the pathfinding of that terrain, the placement of settlements, interactions with settlements, choke points, etc. This is one of the reasons why playing Skulltaker, who's an incredibly powerful legendary lord, is a freaking pain in the ass. Not because it's hard in any way, it's not, but just not fun. Anyway, building, so a lot of number nudging, so increasing, decreasing some numbers by a small amount, playing if the values didn't seem right in Warhammer 3, so building costs, construction times, yes, Lizardmen had longer construction times than anyone else. Outposts have been changed across the board. We've added another tier to the Dread Saurian chain. Having a cap of 1 per province always felt a bit sad. After all, Lizardmen are the oldest of all, so have been there for a long time. So you'll still have a unit cap for Dread Saurians, but it is increasing. You know, to be honest, on the subject of unit caps, here's something I'm going to mention. Some people want to advocate for unit caps. Personally, I don't care. The reason I don't care is like by the point you can even recruit something like a Dread Saurian or a Thunderbarge or a High Elf Dark Elf Dragon, you've won your campaign in many cases. And if you haven't, you won't recruit the Doomstacks. Like, people have this issue. It's like, oh, you should be forced to build varied armies. Well, forced, whatever. If someone wants to waste their resources on it, let them. It's not the smart thing to do. That's kind of my point. You're better off using your resources in many different ways than getting an entire army of Black Dragons or Dread Saurians. That's just my view. It's better to spread that kind of combat power around, and it's better to rely on lower tier units to have more armies, more flexibility. Because one really powerful army is great, but 4 good enough armies are better in campaign dynamics. But anyway, Wall Breaker. So they're spreading the Wall Breaker love around. Really good. Think they should do this more. So dinosaurs or beasts now have Wall Breaker. So all monsters excluding Croxigars. Makes sense. So dinosaurs seem that they're going to be more useful. Like between the construction benefits, economic benefits, and Wall Breaker, you might actually have a reason to actually use dinosaurs as opposed to just spamming Saurus in a Lizardman campaign. We don't see changes to lords here, but we'll see about that, what actually comes in. Just keep in mind, this is probably what they're highlighting, not necessarily the sum total of what they're changing. Personally, I do think that their generic lords and heroes do need a lot of stuff. But yeah, heroes now have minor blessings available to them, smaller versions of lord blessings. So heroes are getting a benefit, but lords, that's a different discussion. Lorem Mazdamundi now starts with Soul Quench. Okay. So, and it's something that makes him more formidable starting character. Good. Mazdamundi's campaign is still probably not going to be great, but it's better. You know, small steps. It's more important to improve the race, though, than improve a particular lord, though it would be nice to actually improve a lot of the lords for Lizardmen. All heroes gain additional skills, and their capacity and rank are now brought in line with races that we have done full reworks and DLC for. And then, yeah, faction tinting on Lizardmen. Okay, fair enough. So it's like, you know, Saurus Spears, Cult of Sotek, Saurus Spears pre 6.3, you know. So they're improving the tinting, and they're adding a bunch of blessed units as well. Chameleon Stalkers, Skin Cohorts, Reperdactyls, Sacred Croxigars, Pterodons, Razordones, Salamanders, Ancient Stegodons. That's good. Might even make Oxyal much better. I mean, Oxyal is still a pretty good campaign, but, you know, ever since we've gotten a bunch of DLCs and reworks, he's just kind of fallen behind. But this might make him ridiculously stronger because he can get a lot more blessed units. I think in general with the situation of blessed units, sometimes you get a lot, sometimes you don't get that much. I think it would be better if they were more standardized. With additional blessed units being put in the game with the opportunity, okay, so will require... So, the spawning button is now always available, but recruiting the blessed units will require the use of spawning sequence, which can be earned via missions, commandments, and performing runs. Well, I guess we'll find out how it's going to play out, but by my read on this, it seems that we will be able to get a lot more blessed units, or availability of them. We'll just need those resources. Rituals like sacrifices to Sotik and Akai's Temple ritual add one to your pool in addition to giving resource. Okay, so I guess we'll find out. We'll find out how it ends up working. Try rebalance. The basic trade system start has been largely untouched. Stat systems characters start with has largely been untouched since Immortal Empires, and some even prior to that. So they are changing traits. Now, we look at determined. We get character experience, immune to psychology, HP, and extra leadership. Fleet-footed gains Wayfarer. Virtue of Discipline gives Knights of the Realm Glorious Charge. So it's a pretty big deal. And there's various mentions of Bretonnia. Alberic, the trade situation. So maybe Bretonnia is in the works for a racial update similar to this. Would be very nice, honestly. Greenskin skills have been updated. I'm wondering about a mount option that's available in multiplayer but not available on campaign, but we'll find out on that. Then extra unusual location, so 20 additional new locations. So we get Carnival of Chaos, Warpstar Meteor Impact, Construction Company, etc., etc. Then they're adding an option for camera blood splatter. You know, my perspective on blood, I'm not really fond of it from the view that, yeah, obviously I dislike the DLC aspect of it, but I also dislike the way blood looks. Like, just seems so over the top. I prefer more sensical level. Like, you do have the option of changing how much blood you're getting right now, but yeah, I just think, like, I'm personally going to play with this off. That's just my view on that. Also, it just kind of looks weird. It's clearly an effect added on it, on top of it. So I think blood should be more sensical and realistic. And then in terms of audio, so new voiceover work for Wulfric, Tronk, Alberic, the Bordelot. That's really nice, especially with Tronk. He does need it. Maybe they could do an entire redesign for Alberic because he looks uninteresting as a character, honestly. They have fully voiced him as Eldraine Lord and given him his own full set of bespoke VO lines. Alright, we've also recorded a new Bretonnian Lord to ensure there's no content lost and only chivalry gained. And then finally, CA account and Total War access link requirements for free DLC. Ultimately, I think this is really good what they're doing over here with regards to Tomb Kings and Lizardmen. There's still more I think they need to do with regards to these races, but it is nice that Creative Assembly is updating both of them because they both need it. I think they need to consider terrain. They also need to consider individual lore mechanics. Like, there's more to be done, but here's the thing. On one hand, as someone who's played Total War for 20 years at this point, it is frustrating to have a situation where you're waiting 3+ years for an update for certain races, because that's the amount of time we've waited for any kind of real update for Lizardmen or Tomb Kings. So, and we get something that's incomplete. So don't get me, so that's frustrating. On the flip side, what's done is done, right? They screwed around, they found out, and now they're moving in the right direction. So if they keep the updates rolling and if they keep doing stuff, that's a great place to be in. Obviously, we would want more. There's a lot of things to be done, but it is the right direction. But I'm also going to say this out loud. 3 years is a long ass time, CA, for some of these things. And it's not like these kind of things are so incredibly complicated to do. The reason I say this is because there's a lot of mods that can and do similar things to what they detail over here. Like new skills, very easy. Building times, all that, very easy. Like changing research, maybe a bit more complicated, fair enough. You gotta consider balance, etc. But it is annoying to have that waiting period. But you know, things hopefully have changed for the better. And they'll continue getting better. That's my view. Costin, signing out. Stay tuned for more.